We're talking about how to start an LLC in New Hampshire, and what you can see behind me is a checklist that we're going to work through, and I'm casting this from my computer. And before we even get to this checklist, I want to talk about something that's really important. This is something I like to call how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. Now, the reason that this is so important is that a lot of people set up their LLCs, but there's certain things that they're not aware of, and then it leads to cracks and issues down the line that can be tens of thousands of dollars in legal damages. Well, when you take a look at this list, it's terms such as not understanding piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agents, pass-through taxations, or maybe it's after LLC formation is you don't understand how the LLC renewal process works, or you don't understand things such as business licenses and permits. To truly understand this better, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to talk about what an LLC actually does for your business, so then we can zoom in and go through the checklist and get your LLC set up correctly for you. So first, why don't we understand what the LLC exactly does for you? Well, it offers limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. Let's explain this through the example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC. Well, in this situation, you have the business owner in the center. Let's say this is a sole proprietorship. On the left-hand side, you have their personal home, car, and bank account. On the right-hand side, you have the coffee shop, the point of sale, the business bank account, the espresso machine, the lights. Everything is directly connected back to that business owner, which creates a lot of liability. Now you have an example of owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop. Well, this looks very different. Now we have the business owner on the left-hand side with the personal assets. On the right-hand side, we're calling this Acme Coffee LLC, and that owns all those assets underneath the LLC. The really important part is the red line in the middle. That line is something called the corporate veil. Now, you probably recall at the beginning of the video, we talked about something called piercing the corporate veil here. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to explain that through the concept of commingling funds. Now, what commingling funds is let's say you got this business set up, but you didn't have a business bank account set up right away. So what you did is you ran transactions through your personal bank account for your personal needs and also for the business needs. This is something called commingling funds. Now, if somebody were to sue you and they hire an attorney, the attorney's job is to find cracks in your LLC. And if they find out you've been commingling funds and they present that evidence to a judge and the judge agrees with them, they may grant them permission to pierce the corporate veil. What that means is that division in between your business and personal assets dissolves, and they can come after both your business and personal assets. That means your personal car, personal home, personal bank account. That's why it's so important to set up the LLC, but to make sure that you have it set up correctly and you understand things such as commingling funds. So the first tip here is when you get your LLC set up, get a business bank account set up as soon as possible and do not commingle funds, all right? Now what I want to talk about is an explanation of pass-through taxation. Here what we have is Acme Coffee LLC and the business owner right here. And the way taxes work is the IRS is not taxing the LLC, they're taxing the individual on their personal tax returns. So what you have here is $140,000 of gross income, and then we're saying there's $90,000 of expenses resulting in $50,000 of net income. That $50,000 of net income passes through to the business owner's personal tax return. Sometimes this is referred to as flow-through taxation. So that's why I wanted to mention this is if you hear flow-through taxation, pass-through taxation, same thing. But just know that you're going to be taxed on your personal tax return. This is actually good for you. It makes tax time a lot easier rather than having to file separate tax returns for your business. But what I did want to make mention of is that in the future, you can apply an S-Corp designation to reduce your tax burden. The reason that comes in is right around $40,000 to $50,000 in net income is when it makes sense to do an S-Corp designation, which does require some extra work for your CPA to file your taxes, but it allows you to save on taxes in the future. The purpose of this video and this video series is not just to help you get set up with your LLC, but it's also to plant seeds such as this so that you know, oh, if in year 2 I'm making this kind of money, I might be able to save on taxes by going with an S-Corp. All right, and we're going to explain that actually in video 3 of this series, but again, I wanted to make you aware of that. Now, when it comes to starting your LLC, first step I'd recommend is actually getting this checklist for yourself. There's going to be a QR code on the screen that you can scan. It's free to download this checklist. You can get a copy for yourself, but it's more than just a checklist as well. In here, there's a glossary of terms, of different terms that are very common when setting up your LLC. This LLC scam video here, very worth watching. It's only 4 minutes, and it's a common scam that goes out after you get your LLC. It may save you a couple $100. But we also have bonuses over here. We have an AI chatbot that you can explore right here. You can communicate with that, and it'll tell you things such as like how to set up an LLC in New Hampshire, and it'll give you detailed steps. There's a free charitable opportunity. This yearly accounting calendar, I would suggest downloading this and just saving it to your phone. These are going to be the important dates in that year, and this will be updated each year, but we're also going to explain this in future content as well. Once you get the checklist, decide which route you want to go to set up your LLC. You can go through the state website, and you can do that as a PDF that you would mail in or through their online portal. You can also go through online LLC Services. They've been around for many years. There's well over 20 of them now. Or you can go through a business attorney. What I'll say is business attorney really separates itself. It's going to be more expensive. You're looking $1,000, $2,000 if you go that route. If you go to the other routes, it's much cheaper. It really depends on your situation. And frankly, that's an entire another video. And that's what we're going to be talking about next. The next video that we get to is specifically deep diving on that. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to go through the state website and show you the process of setting up an LLC. What you need to do is decide on a business name for your LLC. The LLC name, what you need to know is it needs to be unique. It can't already be taken. But does it need to be the perfect name? No. Like you could have Acme Coffee LLC, which is a terrible name for a coffee shop, but then you could have a DBA, doing business as, or a fictitious name that exists underneath that, such as Espresso Yourself Cafe. That could be your brand name. So your brand name doesn't have to be your LLC name. So it takes the pressure off a little bit. But once you have a name, what you can do is you can go to the state directory link here. Go down to New Hampshire. Where are we? All right. And then what we're looking for here is a search. So we're going to click on this link right here and then search for a business name. Now I know like the Catholic Medical Center is pretty big there, but that kind of gives me a good idea here. If I search the word Catholic, right? This is where you can see all these different names that are used at. So you couldn't have Catholic Medical Center because that's already taken. What you're looking for here within this database, and we'll go back, is if I just kind of hit the keyboard like that and do a search, now what you're seeing is no data found. This is the alert that you want to see that tells you that that is a unique name within the state of New Hampshire. So then once you have that name available, it's about getting your LLC set up. Now the first step here, registering your LLC name. I put this on here because people get confused. When you register an LLC name, all you're doing is you're reserving that name. You are not actually setting up an LLC. Some people get confused by that. It's really just this little half step. What you want to do is you actually want to write your articles of organization and submit those. There's a state directory link here again. So the bullet points will get into what the articles of organization are, but I'm going to cover that anyways in this video, specific for New Hampshire. And then when we kind of zoom in right here, all right, this is going to take the 9 steps to avoid rejection. But what we have down here is the first article, the name of the limited liability company. So that's that unique name you came up with. Principal office address, mailing address, business phone, email. Second, describe the nature of the business. Third, the name of the limited liability company's registered agent is. This is definitely something that I wanted to highlight here and talk about because they don't really do a great job of explaining exactly what a registered agent is on this document, and they don't if you go through the state website when you create an online login. What a registered agent is a third party that handles important documentation and communication for your business. Now, in the case of you being sued, right, in the coffee shop, you're going to get something called a service of process notice. The registered agent is going to make sure you get that notice and that you're showing up to court with all the documentation that you need. So it's a really important position. Now, the rules around it is that you have to have one on file. They have to have a physical mailing address within the state of New Hampshire, and it cannot be a P.O. box. That's what you need to know. Now, who do you put in here? There's actually professional registered agent services out there, which are helpful because, again, it helps to kind of separate you from the business. And when you go through the online LLC service tools out there, they will do this for you. They partner with these tools for an extra fee. But one in particular actually provides it for free for the first year. And we're going to, again, cover that in the next video and go through that. But I just wanted to make you aware of what a registered agent is. This section here, manager member information. What you need to know is a member is somebody who owns the LLC. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're the operator. So if you're a solopreneur and you're starting your business, you're going to be a member. But if you're somebody setting up an LLC and you really have a manager that's going to be operating the business, you may be the member and they're the manager. So that's what that's about. Assign date, and then simply you're just sending this in. Section 8 here, though, is really important. Every state has a filing fee to register. It's $100 and it's payable to the state of New Hampshire. There's no way around that filing fee. You're paying that if you go through the state site, if you go through an online legal tool, if you're going, down the line into a business attorney, you're going to pay that filing fee. But just wanted to make you aware that that is part of the process. Once you actually file your articles of organization, whether you downloaded this PDF and mailed it in, did it on the website, or you went a different route, what you're going to do next is considering creating and signing an LLC operating agreement. This is not required in the state of New Hampshire, but it's a really good idea. And here's why. It's one of those situations where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Let's say that you started that coffee shop with a business partner and you have 12 locations now, and then one day the business partner wants out of the business. How do you handle that? Well, if you have an LLC operating agreement, it's going to list who the managers and members are, what are their roles and responsibilities, what happens if somebody needs to exit the business, and it's going to answer these questions ahead of time. You simply point back to that agreed upon document, and that's what you do. Now, if you don't have that, you're going to get attorneys involved. It's going to be very costly, and it's going to be a very frustrating process, most likely, going through that. So an LLC operating agreement is a great idea. You can just Google free LLC operating agreement. You can find them out there. The online LLC services will also provide boilerplate templates as well, but just wanted to make you aware of that. After LLC formation, you want to set up an EIN. There's a link here that explains what this is. It's an employer identification number. It's kind of like a social security number for your business. It's a way for the IRS to identify your business, but you're going to need this if you are going to have employees and putting them on payroll. You're also, if you're going to apply for a business loan or you're applying for a business bank account, it looks a lot better to be able to share your EIN number instead of your social security number. It just looks more professional. Also know that sometimes you'll see EIN and TIN. These can be used interchangeably at times. It can be a little bit confusing. But when you're getting your setup, it's free to do with this link right here with the IRS. You can apply online here. Also, the online LLC services will do this for an additional fee as well for you. The state website typically will not help you with these kinds of things. Now, this next one here, obtain business license and permits for your LLC. There's a helpful SBA resource over here that if you want to check that out. But what I think you could go is use the example of owning a brewery. So if you're to start a brewery, you're going to be brewing beer, distributing beer, and potentially serving beer on premise. Those three things can require different licenses and permits. Now, they can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. My recommendation is start on the local level. Call up your local town clerk or your town hall and just say, hey, I'm starting business XYZ in this type of category. I'm wondering what kind of licenses and permits, if any, are required. And then what's required on the county level, they may be able to help you with that or at least point you in the right direction. When it comes to the state level, you can just do a simple Google search like New Hampshire business licenses and permits and then go through the state website. Do the same on the federal level as well. My recommendation here, though, is just make sure that you take care of this. You don't want to set up a business and get shut down later because you didn't set up a proper license and permit that you needed. Other things to consider, too, is if you're selling physical products, you may want to look into a sales tax registration to set that up with the state as well. But if you're a little concerned about this, different services out there, those online LLC services, will do this research for you. It's usually for an additional fee, but if it gives you peace of mind, it can be worth it. Now, in the next video, we're going to be talking about the different options you have for setting up your LLC. We're actually going to go real deep into the different online tools out there for you because there's a bunch, and some of them you can overpay by close to $1,500 if you don't do your research here. So that's why the first thing we're going to get into is the fees associated with setting up your LLC. We actually have an embedded cost calculator that will show you down to the dollar what your LLC will cost you for the first 5 years of ownership. And then we also have these star ratings that we're going to explain. Here we're talking about domestic versus foreign LLCs. Really important concept to understand. This may apply to you depending on your situation. And then we're going to deep dive into the questions that are worth asking about which path is the right path for your needs. And you're going to learn a bunch in this video. It's not just about LLCs, but it's also thinking about your business and things that you should be considering in the future as well. So again, I'd highly suggest getting this free document for yourself so you can follow along, and I'll catch you in the next video.